All right. So I have two topic questions. The first topic is, what is the source of the prohibition of like poultry and dairy?
Ooh, good question. So from the
Right.
Torah, it may seem like you can't mix dairy and meat, which would be,
Yeah,
bovine,
yeah.
would be cows. But then here comes fowl, chicken. What's that all about, Rev?
Right. It appears in the Mishnah that unless you confuse poultry for red meat, they prohibited that. But it's a bit confusing because it was a rabbi named Yossi HaGalili that did just that. His community did that. It really ends there. It's really a big question because, as you know, chickens don't lactate. But I would consider it rabbinically prohibited. But I don't understand how, if it was a later ruling, if Yossi HaGalili just didn't know about it, or if he didn't get the memo, but there were people who did mix poultry and milk. Perhaps it was a minhag. There's a lot of things that are minhagim that, like minhag Yisrael Torachi, that sort of like sticks like a halacha. But that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, the Rambam for sure brings it down like it's an actual halacha.
It never stuck with fish. I mean, fish, and you can have lox on your cream cheese bagel.
There's a debate. It's understood as a sakana because they thought that it made you sick if you mixed cheese and fish. So that's why they outlawed it, but it didn't really make you sick. But that is not prohibited.
What about eating fish on a different plate than meat? That you're not allowed to have the two different things in the same plate.
I mean, that's for sure not an issue.
All right,
Now,
just making sure you got
further.
everything down. Oh, get all the ducks in a row on that one. Yeah.
Right.
I've heard Rev. I've heard someone say, I don't think they were. I think this was a non-Jew that was telling me this. Not being politically correct, and I say non-Jew. He said, "Well, if you eat goat's milk and beef, but because they're two different animals, you ever heard this argument?
Not at all. Not at all.
That if it's cow meat and cow dairy, that's not acceptable. But if it's from a different animal, then it's okay to."
I don't know.
You ever heard that? Never heard that?
I heard something similar, that basar v'chalav nowadays is not considered a Torah prohibition. It's considered a rabbinic prohibition because the Torah prohibition is not to eat a kid mamish in the milk of his mother, right? But if someone's eating a cheeseburger, the chances of the milk that was made to use that piece of cheese being related to the hamburger that you're eating or the piece of meat that you're eating is astronomical. That means that you're not violating that Torah prohibition. That what you are violating is rabbinic, because then it becomes just prohibited by the rabbis, but not from a Torah perspective. Am I 100% convinced that the mixing of meat and milk, which appears 3 times in the Torah, is exactly what it's implying? I don't know. I mean, the rabbis sure thought it was. The Rambam in Mor Nevuchim, he teaches that this was an actual practice, that this was in Avodah Zorah.
Right. Pagans used to do this. Yeah, they used to boil the animals as a sacrifice in the milk.
Right. But who knows? That whether you believe it's from the Torah or not, it's still obligatory to do. On their low tasur, I mean, you have to listen to what this court tells you, whether you believe it's from the Torah or not. The question, I mean, the big difference between something from the Torah and not being of the Torah is that if there's this effect on if you should do it, how you should do it, if you should be like machmir or like go lakula on it, if you be strict or lenient. If it's a deraita, then it's lechumra, and if it's a rabbinic prohibition, it's lakula.
So Messianic TV wants to know. Messianic TV is asking the question. So this not mixing meat and dairy is an actual halacha of Judaism.
For sure, absolutely. Halacha. Only because something's halacha, that doesn't mean it's from the Torah. There's gezeras, there's takanas, and there's minhagim created by the court. But it's prohibited in Jewish law. Yeah,
absolutely. If you're a Jew and you're kosher and you want to be, shomer mitzvot, then yes, you. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. The one thing I have to be honest, Rav. Out of all the things that I, changed in my life, becoming a Jew, a kosher Jew, the food things is a big one, man. I miss lobster, I miss crab, I miss the cheeseburgers. The food thing it's tough.
There's artificial cheese. There's artificial crab.
It's not the same, Rav. You're gonna tell me turkey bacon's the same as pork bacon? Come on, it's not the same, brother. You compromise.
Turkey bacon's better.
You think so? Turkey bacon's better? Who said that?
I said that. I love turkey bacon.
Oh, get this guy out of the room.
Chicken bacon's good.
Try vegetarian cheese.
Beef bacon is actually pretty good too. Beef bacon.
Beef bacon
Should be a kapara. All right.
All right, what's next on the chopping block? Our good friend Luis Rodriguez, he asks our amigo, he says, Rav, I would like to know if the idea of doing batikim, praying for sunrise, is something important to do to make one's prayers kind of more like accepted. What do you have to say about that? So in Judaism, there's sort of this belief that Abraham prayed before the sunrise or during the sunrise, and that was like the best time to pray because that's when Hashem will hear your prayers the most. I think that's what he's trying to ask, right?
I've heard both opinions on praying vasikin, what they call. Some people view it as a form of gaiva, to wake up so early that you can't even read what you're praying and this and that, and like just to get it over with, instead of praying when you feel that you're in the mood for prayer. I've heard it both ways. For sure, it's not a halacha. At the Kotel, there's a Vasikin group. I remember my friend Moish Mendlovitz was always someone who led that group. But who's going to wake up at that time to daven? From a different perspective, that this person is just trying to pray as soon as he could to get it over with, instead of davening with a regular minyan. It doesn't really matter, man.
So what's your opinion on whether or not you should eat then pray or pray then eat? The strictest is that you should pray before you have food, right?
Well, that's not the strict. That's the rule. I mean, Chabad has this practice of basically having breakfast before you pray. Because you guys learn Hasidus.
Well, that's from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov taught that you should eat before you pray.
I think the understanding is that regarding Shabbat, that you're allowed to eat at least up to Musaf. And then from Musaf on, you're not supposed to eat till Kiddush. But during the week, I mean,
I've heard that you're not you have to eat in the morning of Shabbos, because if you eat, because most shuls, the way they have it is that you get in at 9 o'clock ish, 9:30, 10 o'clock, then you pray for 2.5 hours. By the time you eat in Kiddush, it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Most people would consider that like a fast. You're not allowed to fast on Shabbos, so you have to eat a little bit something in the morning. So
most people don't delay Kiddush or the Shabbos meal. So once it starts going into maybe 2 o'clock, it's already fasting. But most people, I mean, the vast majority of Jews, they start their lunch around 12:30.
12:30.
Around 11:20, 11:30, and at 12:30, 12:45, they're eating already.
It's a lot of good questions. Everyone's getting a lot of good questions tonight. Let's see, who haven't we heard from? Wireless caller. I wonder who that is. If you want to say something, Jamie. Good to see. Oh, Jamie's with Tim. Let's see. We got nothing on the outside. Andrea says Chabad prays after because they're thankful because they're full. That's a nice little biffy comment. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm sorry I just got in about 10 minutes ago.
Nothing to be sorry about. Nothing to be sorry about. It's good to have you.
Thank
Sheepshead
you.
Bay, right?
Huh?
Sheepshead Bay? Is that where you're from?
No, I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. Never.
Sheepshead Bay is in Brooklyn, but I guess.
Oh yeah, I'm in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn.
Oh, Bay Ridge.
Okay. Yeah. I'm further over. But I did have a couple questions actually. As a woman, and I don't know if this is best, can you protest, number one, on anything? And two, can you because of this recent stuff that's been happening here today, I literally just had it and literally ran like Forrest Gump. Can you seriously just also, as a woman, go and exercise outside? I know that there's questions regarding dancing and singing and playing music around men. But what about working out outside as well as protesting?
Okay. Can you clarify your protest question? Can women protest in general or
walk the streets
with men, like holding a sign saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter,
well,
I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily for that specific thing, because if I want to protest something differently, I'd like to.
Okay. So it depends who you ask. If you're going to classify halakha, what appears in the Mishnah, then there's no issue with it at all. Now, the Rambam says that a man shouldn't let his wife out of the house more than twice a month. Now, this also appears in Mishnah Torah as halakha aleph or halakha beis. This is why it's important to know where are these halachas coming from? Because he doesn't always give the source. So that's not a halacha. That's something that was the custom in his community. There's no actual prohibition in women singing. That's also a misunderstanding that the Rambam doesn't fall into. The notion of kol ba'isha erva is not mentioned by the Rambam like that. He mentions that the kol of an isha who is an erva is asur. That means that the voice of a woman who's prohibited to you in a sensual manner is prohibited. Not just the voice of a woman. I mean, kol ba'isha erva has nothing to do with singing to begin with. A kol is a voice. It's not a song. Yes, a woman could sing, but just not in a sensual manner to a man who's prohibited to her. If the woman would be single, then there would be no prohibition because every single woman is available to every man. Being outside, heck, I run the Miami Marathon every year. And if anyone has ever been to the Miami Marathon, probably 40% of it is run by this group called High Lifeline. Also, there's another group called Yachad. They're Jewish Orthodox groups that run marathons and other functions for the disabled. And there's thousands of Orthodox women running 13 or 26 miles. They'll have their little stretchy skirt on. Not that you need a stretchy skirt.
Are they running in sinut or by any chance? Or?
Yeah, no, they're not showing their elbows. Again, according to the Rambam, sniut would include it reaching the wrist. But fine, that is as visible as somebody protesting, probably even more visible. I mean, that when you're running a marathon, there's people lined up on both sides cheering you on.
Right.
So I don't think any of those Orthodox women would be doing it if they felt it was prohibited in halakha. But there's always going to be a group to fill your needs. If you have an ascetic spin to your lifestyle, like if you want to have to shave your head and wear a wig, there's a group for you also. But we can't say that Judaism teaches this. So no, there's no issue with you protesting. I mean, being overly loud in front of men could be, I mean, it says in the Gemara, one reason why a woman shouldn't be allowed to read from the Torah, it mentions the notion of kavod hatzibur, that it dishonors the community, but that's only if the community is dishonored socially. That means if your community doesn't have a problem with a woman reading from the Torah, right, then it's not prohibited.
That's sort of catch 22 there. Yeah.
Because it's not brought down as prescriptive, it's brought down as a story. Right. In the Mishnah and the Gemara, things are either prescriptive or they're descriptive. So sometimes they're descriptive, but they're there to teach us a lesson. Like the whole notion of ein simcha ela basar yayin, that there's no joy without meat. Well, that's if you find eating meat and drinking wine joyful. Like if you find it disgusting, then you shouldn't find it as some sort of obligation to eat meat on Yom Tovim. Although people like Rav Kook, even the Vilna Gaon, were vegetarians, but they ate meat on Shabbat just to fulfill every opinion on the issue. So no, there wouldn't be an issue with any of those things, in my opinion.
Okay, one real quick question, because of the fact that you mentioned the meat and the milk. I was just curious. Obviously, there's a separation of, dishes and so forth with the meat and the milk. And you have to wait 6 hours after you eat meat before you can have any milk products or dairy products. What about brushing your teeth? Do you have a separate toothbrush?
Okay. So nowhere in authoritative halakha does it tell you to wait 6 hours.
That's true.
6 hours is the opinion of the Rambam. The Ramah held 1 hour. Shulchan Aruch also mentioned 6 hours, but it held that the Jews in Germany had the custom of doing it for 3 hours. So people nowadays assume it's like the Rambam, but the Rambam never said 6 hours. He said around 6 hours. According to the plain law, like if someone brushes her teeth or rinses her mouth out, they could move from meat to dairy.
Oh, I've heard that. Right. You drink a glass of water, squish it around, and then you can eat something.
So some people try to embellish the notion and add hyperbole to it and say, oh, well, if there's meat and cheese in your stomach, that's what's prohibited. But the rabbis in the Talmud failed to mention that example. So no, you don't need a separate toothbrush. And you technically don't even need separate sinks. there's many, especially in Israel, like those little tiny apartments, they have one sink there. And of course, these guys are going above and beyond. People usually have a little mat that they have in the sink and they'll sort of like swipe it out. But it seems that if the dishes aren't porous, then one could also have one set of dishes. For example, Sephardim are lenient on glass. So Sephardim will have glass dishes that they'll use for both meat and dairy. But it doesn't have to be limited to glass. It could, like, you could include other things that you know to be non-porous but haven't been accepted by the Jewish community, like stainless steel. Rabbi David Bach-Haim argues for stainless steel, right? Even though the Gemara frowns upon the notion of steel, but that's because the steel back then was a different one. It wasn't stainless steel. It was this porous steel that even if you would boil water in it, the water would seep through the holes in the steel, i.e. it was porous. But if it's not porous, and by being that we don't have a court to decide these things for us, you could, if you're going to be serving people in your community, like you should do what that rabbi endorses, or people aren't going to eat in your house. That's one. But if for some reason you weren't in a Jewish community and all you had was something like stainless steel, I think it would be okay to just wash it out well and cook from meat to dairy and vice versa.
Thank you.
Very good. Good question. Thank you.